Hi there, my name's Mel Pearce. I work at Perins School, which is a mixed comprehensive in Hampshire. We're an e-learning school, so we have a one-to-one laptop scheme where students lease the laptops from us, and we have a really well-embedded VLE. We use Moodle. So flipped learning is relatively easy for us in terms of the fact that we've got all the technology, we've got a really good IT support team, and the students have got the devices that they can use in and out of home. I'm going to talk to you about an introduction of flipped learning, and I've been doing some research and reading some of the things I've sort of learnt, some of the stages of flipped learning, and then maybe some things to avoid. It's an introduction, but almost what to avoid as well. So I'm using Poplits here, which is a web application. You can get it as an app as well. It goes on tablets as well. And it's basically a mind mapping tool. So for instance, you can drag these, move them around, change the colours, etc. To do mind mapping. This is just one I've done myself, but I can show you some examples afterwards where students have co-collaborated on them together. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the 5 stages. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sort of running down the middle, and then I've got some branches off just to help you think. So the first stage then is having a look at the topic overall and looking at the best opportunities in your overall topic. So let's say you're talking about photosynthesis. Which bits did you want to really extend the students? So the basic idea of flipped learning is that you do the basic instruction, the knowledge input at home instead of in the class, where normally you might sort of go over it again and again. You might be interrupted, you're missing the main points, and students can stop and rewind. So those main instruction bits you do at home so that you can do the higher order thinking skills in the class. So when you want to do that, look at your whole topic, work out maybe where the difficult bits are, okay? Work out maybe where you want to get knowledge for deeper understanding, the real maybe away from the syllabus, links to real life, where you're going to have those bits. And explain the topic to the children generally, or you could do one of those wonder walls where they want to find out things, where they work out what they know already and what they want to find out. And don't be afraid to allow the students to investigate and leave the syllabus, because that does actually lead to deeper understanding. So when you've sort of got that idea in your mind, you might look and try and work out what the outcomes are. What are the learning outcomes? Do you want them to explain, argue, do a practical? Do you want them to label a model? What tasks do you want them to do? And then you could work out which bits are best to be done at home and which bits are best to be done in the classroom. And the idea is it's not just task-led, so you don't do it because this is the worksheet that's on the scheme of work next, or this is something that you just quickly searched in tests. You try and work out actually what do I want them to do. So I want them to learn the labels and apply how it affects something else, or I want them to learn or be able to analyse a graph. So you really need to be clear at the whole beginning of the topic what you're actually doing and which are the best flipped learning approaches, because you might choose some things are actually better to do in the traditional way. Now this thing I need to explain to them actually, or this thing they need to read something in the class and swap it around. So you need to decide what you want to do, because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to flip everything. Then you've got the discussion or thoughts to yourself about how you're going to create your own resources. Now, people spend a lot of time, and I think it's great if you have got the time to make their own resources. But however, YouTube is a great place. So if I wanted to show the students something, again, say on photosynthesis, the first place I'd look is YouTube, or maybe one of the other packages you've already got that have got video clip banks. Whilst it's really good to make your own, because then the students get excited and they see it's you, and you're like, maybe you've got your, I don't know, certain teddy in the background or something to make it cute so they think it's them. Don't be fooled that just because you've made it and you've explained it, you think really well, that makes them learn it necessarily. So do mix up things. Sometimes it's best for you to do, sometimes just use YouTube. You could work out, is it good on an iPad or not, because sometimes children get put off on the iPad if they've got them at home for playing, so consider that. And it doesn't have to be passive, so it doesn't always have to be something that they're watching. They could actually do something. They could do a quiz already. That could be part of the flipped learning, to see what they know already. that you then analyse. So creating your own resources for them to flip. It could be read the pages in the revision guide. So again, go back to what your learning intentions are. What are you getting them to try and do? Is it just label the parts, learn the labels? In which case, there's various different things you could do to do that. I'm just going to pause for a second while I find something that connects to that. Okay, so this is a slide that I've made before about your pedagogical choices. So once you've decided what your learning objectives you want them to be, so you want them to discuss or you want them to be able to explain, so using keywords, then rather than being activity-led, where you just go to your school scheme of work or just go to the next worksheet or the next page in the textbook, you'd have your traditional activities, and you should go through your mind to say, actually, are they going to research? Is that best for this particular task? Because sometimes if it's just labelling the parts, we'll just tell them and they can then do the explaining why those features are helpful. Is questioning going to work? Is mind mapping going to work? Is that too complicated and they don't know enough? So already you would go through your traditional activities when you're clear of the learning objectives, and these are the sort of things you could maybe have as your flipped activities at home. But also remember, then you've got all these other e-learning ones as well. So you could give them a presentation, a YouTube clip or something that you've made online, self-marking quiz if you've got a VLE, or you could use various different self-marking quizzes to start off with to see what they know. Drag and drop activities, again, you need to think how they've actually done that. You could get them to post something on a forum, say if it was, I don't know, find out about a species that's been extinct, they could post it online, and they could plan collaboratively, which I can show you some examples. So you can obviously pause this video, but here's some examples of doing some e-learning things, which could be done synchronous or asynchronous. So that means with you in the classroom or at home. So that was just going back to the ideas of those pedagogical choices. So going back to the presentation, this is where we're talking about creating your resources. Okay, so you've decided which bits in your course you want to flip, making sure that the learning is led first by using Bloom's taxonomy, these higher order thinking skills, or is it a lower group and you just want to overly do that recall and labelling, etc. You've created your own resources, or you've borrowed ones from someone else, is what I mostly do, use YouTube, etc. Okay, this is the difficult bit now. People think, oh, I've done flipped because I've made a video and I'm really pleased with my work, but that doesn't mean that they've learnt. So this is the difficult bit, is that planning some activities that they can actually apply that knowledge in an uncertain situation. Okay, that's just your normal, really, your AFL. Okay, so you might teach through questioning, really checking if they've understood the things. Again, really good questioning, create that cognitive conflict. So is it? I don't know. Why isn't a leaf blue? Okay, really trying to use that questioning, and oops, sorry, spelling mistake there, and making sure that students actually, take the ownership of their own learning. That's your normal sort of class activities that you might do. AFL, really, you should, in a perfect flipped learning environment, you may have some sort of quiz or test or differentiated activities depending if they understood the homework, they're getting it to start with. So you could do a little 1 to 10 mini test, or ask a couple of questions if you understood it and you use these words in your answer. Brilliant, go and do this task. If you didn't really do that and you're not sure, go and do this task. And if you want the extension stuff to go outside the syllabus, then you can go and do these things. So that would be ideally that the flipped activities you made them do, they do actually leads on from that in the classroom, rather than everyone necessarily doing the same. And then you'd have all your plethora of amazing AFL techniques to check they've understood. So it'd really be like a working environment, the students working with each other, thinking about groups changing, that sort of thing. Okay, conditional activities means if you can do this, then you go on to this. If you couldn't do that, then you maybe go on to this. Okay, then we've got generally trying to change the culture then. This peer learning, students teaching each other. So students can question each other, they can create learning resources for each other. So in that example above, if you understood this really well, could you, freeze frame those 3 slides in the YouTube clip that you felt was understood the best? Could you write 3 main points to teach someone else? Could you write 3 questions for someone else to learn? Could you think of a model? So students teaching each other. Student-led glossary is another good way, where they write the definitions on an interactive place that they can learn from each other. So that's sort of changing the culture where students are teaching each other. So that generally then you have the teacher ending up as the facilitator. You provide the activities for the students to discuss and learn, and you may think, oh, it's not going to work in my school, they won't do that. But the more you try it, the more you say, tomorrow's lesson, you're going to stand up and do the presentation to these people about this, and you can differentiate it to make it easier for some people and harder for others. Then that's really good. Often then making videos so they don't have to do it live, making slide shares, which is where you move bits of paper, making models. It really gets a good understanding. And the good bit of that is writing the script and checking that you've understood the language, because really that's what you want. Effectively you can mark as you go around, helps them to do that. And don't be afraid to sort of go off the syllabus occasionally. But again, to do that, you need to be really clear what your main topic is and your main learning objectives are. So in summary for that, just trying to make sure I've got my... In summary, we have got the main areas is deciding your whole topic. I'll show you, I haven't got an example here actually, but show you a whole topic, what you want to flip. Create your own resources, but don't be afraid to use others. Some things could be interactive. Work out how you're going to make sure they've done that and what you're going to do if they haven't done it. This is the important bit. Changing your activities, planning what you're going to do if they have or haven't got it, maybe even just 2 different activities to start with. Students teaching each other, which is just general good teaching, and then changing this culture. So it's nothing particularly new. Eric Mazur from MIT, I think it is, who first discovered this, is excellent at this bit. So he does this in university lecture way. So instead of standing there lecturing for half an hour on something, he would show them the videos to start with, and then they'd come in and they'd have iPads, and he'd use real sort of diagnostic testing. So he'd make some multiple choice questions that are difficult, that you might get it wrong, ask them to vote on the iPad, and those of them that got it right all go over this way and do this thing, and those of them that didn't, you've got to carefully plan the questions. But if you did that on a large scale diagnostically, that's a really good way to go forward, providing they've actually done their work to start with. So that's some basics and things what to avoid for flipped learning culture. Good luck.